Hey guys, welcome to the vid. I'm DM Scotty. Welcome to DM's Craft Short Tip. I want to talk a little bit about paints. I've had some people ask me about starting paints, and I thought it might be helpful to give a visual of and talk about what paints are good to start with your paint set, and then you can kind of work out from there. So so you're not at the store trying to figure out what you need to buy to get started in the hobby. This will get you started, and then like I say, as you expand your crafting, you can always just start adding colors to your collection, and you won't break the bank trying to buy a whole bunch of paints you may not need to start with. So let's go to the table and we'll talk about the paints. So here we go, guys. Here's our pretty much our basic kit. And you can see I have all different companies of paint. It really doesn't matter what kind of craft paint you buy. You can get this stuff at all the big box stores. You can get it at hobby stores, all that kind of stuff. Don't use your miniatures paint, your very expensive miniatures paint on these projects. You're just wasting money. These things, you can usually get them for like $1 a bottle. So don't be spending all that money on those little teeny jars that are actually for miniatures that are much more expensive. This is the cheap stuff. You can also get the artist stuff that comes in a tube, and that's much more expensive too. If for some reason you're looking for an effect, that you might want to use that, but for 99% of all your stuff, this is the kit you're going to use for paint. So let me talk about what I have here. So most dungeons, they're made out of stone. There might be some wood and a little metal in the dungeon. So that's why I have these colors. So I've got black. Black you can mix with any of the other colors if you need to. Also, I use it for shading on the walls of most of my tiles to give it more of a 3D look on the tile. So black is good. You can also get larger bottles of black, which I suggest because you're going to use a lot of black. So, get a big bottle of black if you can. And then we move on to gray. Now I've got two types of gray. I've got a darker gray and a lighter gray. Now the darker gray I might use for projects where I'm not texture painting something with a texture paint, or just to fill in a spot maybe. And then the light I use for highlighting tiles. You've seen me highlight the edges of the tiles and things that just kind of gives it some dimension. Since it's only, the wall is only short, it helps to bring the wall up, to give the illusion that the wall is taller. So the highlight really helps with that. Now here I've got some browns. I've got a dark brown, and usually it's just like burnt umber. And then I have a golden brown, and this is just a spice brown. It really doesn't matter what combination you get. Make sure you get a dark brown. It doesn't have to be burnt umber. These colors, you don't have to get these particular colors. All the companies call their colors different things. It's more important the shade. So like I have a dark gray and a light gray, or a regular gray and a light gray. With this I just have some different colors of brown, because you don't want to make everything the same color brown. I try to make things that are made out of wood a different color than things that are like the soil. So I'll use the dark brown and paint everything first, and then I will use, say if it's a wood brown, I might use this golden brown to give it some highlights, and if it's like dirt, I might use the spice brown to give the dirt some highlights. So it gives it some dimension. So that's why you want the different colors of brown. Now over here by itself, I have the gunmetal. And I use gunmetal all the time. You can use it on portcullises. You can use it on banding for doors, all that kind of stuff. So get a gunmetal. Don't get a silver. The silver will be too bright. It'll be like a shining, bumper or something. It's like, this is an old dungeon. You don't want it to be all shiny and new. You want it to look old. So the gunmetal really makes it look like an old, like banding or something like that, or like a portcullis. It makes the metal look older. So these are the basic colors you want. So that's not very many colors, and if you pay $1 a bottle, that's not much. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to a few sets of other colors that you might get if you're doing different projects, and I'll show you those now. Alright, next up we have a water kit. So if you're going to do some kind of water that's not brown or murky, you'll want this kit. So basically I've got a dark blue, this is a midnight blue. I've got a lighter blue, this is called Regency blue, but like I said, you could use any blue as long as it's lighter than this one. And then I have white. So you can always mix these two together to make lighter or darker areas. So generally what I will do is, when I do a water area, and I want it to be the bluish color and not like some bracken, you know, pool, which you could always add black to if you wanted it, or brown. Actually brown would be better. What I'll do is I'll use a very wet application, and I'll start with the dark blue, and then while that's still wet, I'll use the lighter blue and do the edges. So I'll do like the center with the darker blue, and then I'll do on the edges the lighter blue. So it gives the illusion that the pool is going down, like it's deeper in the middle than it is on the edges. So that's kind of a nice effect. And also the water, if you do if the water is maybe splashing against the side or something, or you want some lighter areas, you could, or cresting water or something, you could use the white to kind of dry brush or just add a little bit, just a touch on it to give it like a, you know, like a movement look, like the water's moving. Now also, you could do snow with this stuff too. You probably pretty much wouldn't use the dark blue, but what you could do is, if you're doing snow, you know, you could use the glue gun, or, you know, or even like just regular play sand, and you could paint it like a base blue, and then dry brush it with the white. So that would give the effect of like ice or snow. So that's kind of killed two birds with one stone with this set. So now I'm going to show you the next set. So these three colors are my fire kit. I've got a bright yellow, a orange, and a true red. There are a lot of different colors of red. Make sure you get true red. It'll look better in your fire. So yeah, make sure you do that. Now I've shown the technique for painting fire and smoldering, something that's smoldering and everything. So you can use this technique with lava, with a cracked floor that has lava coming through it, or anything like that. So this would be your basic fire kit if you want to do anything that's like glowing embers or fire or anything like that. This is the color set you would use. So there we go. There's that. Alright, so here's my basic spray kit. I've got some flat black, and I've got two texture paints. Now this is a stone-like texture, and this is a brown texture, but I use it for dirt. It works great for that. So basically with the flat black, you want to make sure it's flat black. You don't want to get gloss black, because the gloss black takes way longer to dry, and it can be sticky. So make sure that you get the gloss black, or I mean the flat black. Now with the texture paint, this stuff can be the most expensive part of the project. So the technique I use, as you've seen in my videos, I spray it with the flat black first, and then I spray it with the texture paint. And the reason is because if you try to cover the cardboard with the texture paint, you're going to use way more texture paint. You can, if you do this technique with spraying it black first and then using the texture paint, you can save, this will go 4 times longer than if you just spray it with the texture paint. So this is the most expensive part, so definitely you want to save on this. So use your flat black, which is really cheap. Just buy the cheapest you can buy. You don't need the really expensive flat blacks. Just get the cheap stuff. I got this at a big box store. So those are basically the spray paints. And just remember to use your flat black, and you can make these go much longer without having a new can. Now one thing is, these may not be the exact color you want, but you can always fix that. Like if you want it to be, the gray to be darker, you could dust it with the flat black. So say you spray the gray and then you hit it with the flat black a little bit. That'll make it a darker color without covering up the entire gray surface. So that's a good technique for making something darker if you want to make it darker. And those are our basic spray paints. So here we go. Last but not least, I have this. I have a water-based varnish. This stuff is great. This isn't the actual can, of course. The can is like a paint. It comes like a paint can, and it pops off like that. So after a while, you know, it gets gummy and it's hard to work with. So I just use this old jar and put the varnish in it. So I find it easier to work with. But the varnish is great. For one thing, it's water cleanup. So you don't have to use turpentine and all those toxic chemicals trying to clean your brushes. You can just use water and soap. And this works great. So if you have an area that's wet, like water or lava or anything like that you want it to look slick, or slime or anything, I've used it for that, or sludge or anything like that, this stuff is great. It'll really make that stuff pop. And this is an extra step you wouldn't have to do, but this gives it that extra cool. You know, it just, you know, it makes the water, instead of just looking like water, it really makes it seem like water because it's shiny like water would be. So, you know, this stuff isn't very expensive, and I've had this jar since I've been doing tiles, and look, I still have like most of it left. So, and the jar's smaller than this, so I probably had like this much, you know, and I'm here. So I've only used like that much, and since I've been doing tiles, so one jar is going to last you, you know, probably for your tile making career, unless you're making an ocean or something. So I would definitely recommend this stuff. Just the ease of cleanup and just that little extra cool factor that it gives to your tiles is just worth the time and effort. So I would definitely recommend it. So there we go. Those are all the kind of the starter kit. And there's always other techniques. If you're doing snow, you know, you're going to want to spray the tiles white instead of black, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, you can always modify these techniques. And the thing is, if you find you need colors that you don't have in your kit, you can just start adding those colors. So when you initially go out and buy your paints, just buy the basic paints. You know, don't buy every color you see, just buy the basic paints. You spent, you know, $10 maybe on the acrylic paints, and then, you know, depending if you need the different texture paint, you could just buy the one bottle, you know, the stone texture. If you're doing a dungeon, you don't have to buy the dirt texture. If you find that you need it, you can go buy it. But, you know, so, you know, you don't need to buy all the paints at once. So if you find that after your basic kit, if you're like doing something, oh, I need like, you know, a special blue or something, you can just buy that, you know. So just start adding to your pool of paints, and, you know, slowly. Just start with the basic kit, and you'll be good to go. So, DM Scotty signing off, and I'll see you next time.